Hello and welcome. I'm Rosie Cooke, Community Projects Officer here at the Community Safety Partnership. For our event today, we're going to be discussing home and garden security, the steps you can take to secure your home, garage and shed, as well as the support that's available to victims of theft and burglary. I'm joined today by Perri Selwood, the Trust Manager of the Cambridgeshire Bobby Scheme.
Hello there.
Well, welcome, Perri. Thank you so much for joining us today. And also by Robin Sutton, Chairman of the Cambridgeshire Neighbourhood Watch Association.
Hello.
Hello, Robin. You're very welcome. Thank you both for joining us today. It's estimated that home burglary takes place every 106 seconds in the UK. And in the summer months, it's particularly the time of year that we see a dramatic increase. So what aspects of someone's home would make someone vulnerable to burglary, and what do criminals look for when they're choosing a property to target?
Well, I think the main thing, Rosie, especially as you say with spring and summer almost upon us, is windows left open. You know, I think we've all at one point gone out and left a window open, even if it's just a small toilet window. Now, a lot of these burglaries take place by opportunists, people just walking by and they see the opportunity and they seize it. They might ring the doorbell, no one answers, so then they'll take advantage of an open window or an unlocked gate. Sometimes as well, if your front garden perhaps is a little bit overgrown, maybe if you're elderly and you can't do it yourself anymore, these are all kind of little signs, things like that, are little signs to show that you are perhaps a bit vulnerable. And of course, with elderly people, they still live in a world where they're very trusting, and unfortunately, they don't always lock their doors. So people might just try the door and you know, just walk in. And unfortunately, there are many unscrupulous people out there that will just spin a yarn and say they're from the water board or make up any story to get access into the home and take advantage of that person. I mean, this is something that we do see a lot, doorstep scammers. People that obviously come to the door, they ring the doorbell or knock on the door, and they fraudulently make their way into the home by one way or another. And as I say, people are very trusting. So one thing that we would say that is very effective and very simple device with the doors is to have a door chain, and very simply would say lock, stop, chain and check. So if we can remember those things as perhaps an elderly person or someone living alone, it gives you the time to reflect on what's happening. And sometimes if you haven't got a chain or something like that, somebody might forcefully or be overly persuasive and try and gain access, and it might be even by saying something like, oh, you know, I need to use the toilet, or could I have a glass of water? And sometimes people work in twos as well. So while someone's trying to make small conversation at the front door, somebody else might be, as well, your garden's overgrown at the front or something like that. They'll already know that you're perhaps a little bit vulnerable, and they'll find any way to gain access. I've heard quite a bit about COVID scammers who are knocking on people's doors, obtaining money through saying that you know, we can give you a test, or you need to you've been registered for your jab and you need to make a payment. But we'd like to sort of reassure residents, wouldn't we, that is in no way. That does not happen. No.
The way that
no one will ever knock on your door and ask you to come and have a jab. You will get your surgery will be in touch with you, and you will know them. I think with some people, if you've got the app, you know, you can go onto the app, and only with the NHS app will you be able to book. And also, you will never be asked to pay or part with any money for
it's
any
completely
jab
free
or
service,
anything.
isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if there's any money, people are asking you for any money for anything to do with the coronavirus, it's a scam, and just you must ignore them. And of course, if you can report them, these things, it's good for the police to know. Obviously not on the emergency number, but there's a 101, or you can go online and report
use
it.
a web chat. That's very effective, isn't it?
Or get in touch with Trading Standards or somebody like that.
Yeah, and again, in regards to the coronavirus and breaches, the police are not going to knock on your door and ask you to hand over money because you've been reported for a breach.
No.
So these are all things people need to be aware of. If anyone's knocking on your door asking for cash or a card payment, that is definitely a scam, and you just need to protect yourself from that and say no.
Yes.
Okay, so thinking about the distraction burglaries, people leaving windows open more often in the warmer weather, people maybe leaving their sheds unlocked because we're starting to think, oh, the grass could do with its first cut this time of year. What are the main steps that our viewers can take to secure their properties, to make them less vulnerable?
Well, basically what we would say is that we use a simple word to try and remind you the things that we would advise people to do, and that's wide. Windows and door locks installed, interior lights on a timer, double locks on the doors, and exterior lights on sensors. So those things will help to cut down burglary by about 50 times. So it's well worth doing.
Yeah.
More detailed method and sheds and so on is to use something that goes beyond that, and you start looking at the perimeter of your property and look at whether it's well fenced, whether there's a back gate, whether you've got a high hedge at the front that stops people seeing, because burglars are opportunists, as Perri said. They don't want to be seen, they want to be quick. So anything that happens to get in their way or allows them to be seen by others will stop them choosing your property. Yeah. So for instance, looking at the perimeter, you could look at your fences and walls. You could look at the garden itself to see if you've left anything about that will help them do the burglary. You could look at the garage and make sure that's secure, because you'll often have one of the most expensive things you've bought sat in the garage.
Absolutely.
Along with all the tools that you use, of course, and then check your outbuildings too. And then once you've done the perimeter, start looking at the shell of your building, the main building itself. That's where your locks come in, where you keep spare keys, not in the pretend stone in the garden, for instance, which might not be a very good idea. What sort of alarms have you got? And then you could look into the interior. And it's important to think about the interior. Have you left all your cases somewhere where a thief your things away and look a perfectly innocent person going on holiday? Don't give them the opportunity. So looking at that, the interior, keys, where do you keep the keys? Do you keep them available to anybody that will break in? Or do you put them in a secure cupboard that might cost you just a few pounds? Going beyond that, of course, which then means that it looks as though you're at home, even if you're not, when it gets dark. Because again, a burglar doesn't want confrontation. They want to be in, out, and not meet anybody. If the house looks occupied, they won't go in. So, and those are simple things that you can decide for yourself. They don't cost a lot of money. Most of it is just a matter of looking around the house and thinking, what would I look for if I was a burglar? Have I got high value items on show in the window so that they can case the joint beforehand? And don't forget, burglars aren't silly. They can use Google to browse your street and see who's got the big hedges, who's got a clear entrance, long before they even visit the area. So it's well worth thinking, what would I see if I was a burglar? And think it through, and then put something in the way.
And I guess we're all aware of the rising dog thefts at the moment, which is new to me in my lifetime. So at this point, I suppose it's not a great idea to leave your dog in the garden all day while you go to work, is it?
It's not. I think one of the things we need to be aware of is that social media and the like will report things that maybe appear to be a dog theft, but actually in reality it's the case that the dog's found a hole in the fence that you didn't notice and they've gone for
decided to go on an adventure.
Yeah, as they do. There are dog thefts. It would be silly to pretend there weren't, because they're very high value items now.
They are
especially
these
with
days.
COVID.
Yeah.
But again, it's much like any other problem with crime. If you take a preemptive look around and think about what can happen, then you can find ways to stop it happening. And prevention, as my grandma used to tell me, is always better than cure.
And Robin, I mean, some of the things that you've mentioned, and Perri can come in on this too, some of the things you mentioned that they're quite low cost, like timers on lights around your house, so that it looks, and you can create an illusion that maybe there's more than one person living if you have things coming off, going on again. Where can people get access to these things that can make their homes more secure? Where's the best place to go shopping or to get advice for these?
Well, Rosie, I mean, but we do visits, and we supply all of these gadgets on our visits. Yeah, we do ask for a £50 donation, and that really just covers the cost. But with that, you actually get a full visit from one of our bobbies who comes, and like Robin explained, they will start off looking around the outside, the perimeter of the property, to see if there is any risky areas there, or any particular areas of interest to a thief or a burglar. And then they will look at inside the property. They will give they will survey the property and look for any kind of hot spots, if you like. And then from that, we will fit small gadgets, small, very simple gadgets like door alarms or window alarms. And basically, if somebody is going to break your window or try to gain access through a window or a door, it will create an alarm. That will go off, and it will create an alarm and alert you, or mainly frighten them, and then they will leave. We also have things like TV simulators, like you were mentioned earlier, and these just plug in, and they are a very simple gadget which simulates a TV, so you don't have to leave the TV on. But if you are popping out, say to take the dog for a walk, you might want to plug that in, or you're going, well, in a normal world, if you're going out for the evening or whatever, you might want to plug that in for a couple of hours, and it's like that there's somebody at home watching TV. Very similar to perhaps leaving a light on. And we do the timers for the lights. We fit the door locks, the door chains. We also fit key safes. So Robin, you were saying about leaving the key in an ornamental rock or whatever. We now fit the high security police accredited key safes. And they're also good for people if you have a carer, or if you're going away and you want somebody to come in and water your plants, or just to make sure that the home's okay. But mainly, you know, all these little gadgets that you were saying earlier as well. In fact, I think we were discussing it before we came on. The holders to put your key into, so your key doesn't get cloned, because your key can get cloned, your car key can get cloned from the outside in if it's close enough. So, you know, these are the things that we need to be looking out for. And also card defenders, which act in the same way for your credit cards or your bank cards when you're out and about, because they can get cloned through your wallet.
Describe to everyone what the card defenders are.
It's a plastic. Yeah, it's a plastic sleeve, so it's the same size as the credit card, just slightly bigger, and you can just slide your credit card in it. So it's just like a glove,
That's
if you
simple to
like.
do, isn't it?
Yeah, very simple. And we tend to give things like that away on visits, and also other little gadgets. Like I should have brought some actually, but we've got like something that you can, like a coil, a springy coil that you can put your keys on or your purse on and clip it into your bag. So if somebody does try and pickpocket you while you're out and they grab your purse, they might take the purse, but they can't run very far with it because they can't then pull the coil. And there's like little bells. And also for gentlemen who often like to go out with their wallets, we have like what you call a hidden wallet. So it's just like a little bag, if you like, a thin bag with
Has it got some kind of like strap or something?
A strap, that's it. Thank you, Rosie. Yeah, and it goes around your neck and it just hides inside your jacket or your jumper.
Oh, excellent.
So it can't be seen. So you can pop your money or your cards in there.
Yeah.
But around the home, you know, we've got other bits and pieces like sash jammers, I think they call them. And if you're in a bungalow, we've got some kind of gadget that you can open your window, but it'll only open a certain amount and it won't open anymore, so that locks. So, you know, there's all sorts of bits and pieces. And as I say, if we do come out to you on what we call a proactive visit, whatever we fit and whatever advice we give, that's all just for that £50, and that covers, you know, all the bobby, whatever the bobby does or fits for you, and those devices. And I mean, it is a minimal amount. If you did have somebody come out to you to even change a lock, you know, that might cost you in the region of £150. So we can do we do the lock changes as well. So if you know, if you've lost your key and you're worried, we can come out and do that for you. But also, Rosie, what we are trying to, or what we've been doing a lot more recently, is fitting video doorbells.
So yes, I've seen these. Yeah,
they are very, very effective. And I think if somebody walked past and saw a burglar walk past and saw something like that, they would just walk on by, perhaps to the next house, because it captures very, very good images that are good enough for evidence in court. So they are a very good deterrent, and they're also very good for your peace of mind, because if you're away from the home and you do have a smartphone, you can actually see, you know, if the postman's been, or, you know, anyone walking or approaching to your property, you'd be able to see them. And
so that's live streaming to your phone.
Yes.
The image from the front door. That's brilliant.
It is.
And the cost of those has come down quite a bit, hasn't it? Some
I think
price now.
Yeah, for a reputable quality, you know, for a reputable, from the main dealer, if you like, they're about £89 at the moment. You can buy some that are a little bit less, but I'm not sure entirely how they work. Some of them have a little bit of a delay on them, but I do know for £89 you can get a really, really good one.
Oh, that's something I might be investing in that.
Yes.
So for older and vulnerable residents in Fenland who might be worried about crime, you've described some of the things that Bobby Scheme can offer to them. How can they contact you directly? Do they have to have a referral from the police? Do they have to be a victim of crime, or can it be a preventative measure to contact you?
Okay, well, our criteria is a little bit complicated, because we were set up in 2001 by the Police Crime Commissioner and the Cambridgeshire High Sheriff. So they felt that there was a need in the Cambridgeshire area to protect elderly victims and mainly elderly people that have been affected by crime. So originally we did only visit people that had been affected by crime, that were over 60. But now we do visit those people, and they do not have to pay for a visit. but they would have to have a crime number. But since then, like you've just said, you know, there are people that do feel vulnerable, and if perhaps your neighbour's been burgled and you haven't, but you would like a visit, we can come out to you. As I say, we do ask for the £50 donation, but to qualify for that, you would have to be over 65.
Okay, but this isn't just a scheme, it's a scheme for over 65s then, but there is a fee. If that's fine.
But I mean, if they can't afford it, and you know they really are desperate, then please get in touch with us, because
yes, it's not going to be a barrier. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Robin, can I ask you this question? Are decoy burglar alarms a good deterrent or a waste of time? Should you always get a real one? Do they know? Do burglars, are they onto it? Do they know they're decoys?
Basically, it's a plastic box. And if you're experienced in knowing these things, and I'm afraid burglars are extremely experienced, as are the experts who come around and give you advice, you can usually tell it's a fake alarm just by looking at it. Very often people make a mistake, such as they'll buy a cheap one because they're saving money and they think it's a great idea. And then they put it on the wall in a place that no self-respecting expert would ever install an alarm box, which is kind of a giveaway right from the word go.
Okay.
Some of these plastic boxes are very poorly designed. You can see that they haven't got the features they should. And some are better and some almost look like the real thing. But generally, a burglar will know straight away that it's a fake box. And of course, at the end of the day, if they decide they're going to chance their arm, get into the place because it doesn't look too difficult to get into, they'll work on the principle that they've got a few moments before anybody responds to the alarm anyway. So they'll try it on, and then lo and behold, of course, it doesn't work. It doesn't make any sound, and they can carry on regardless. So would I buy one? Personally, no. Advice from insurers like ADT, who's install alarms, they'd say that 94% of people who are going to commit burglary will avoid a house that's got a monitored alarm on. Now, obviously, a monitored one's going to have the company name on it and other things to give it away. So they won't touch that from the start. An insurer will probably say that most burglars do spot fake alarm boxes very easily, and they're generally a waste of money. They're better than nothing, but they have to be well done. And if I can just return briefly to one aspect of the Ring doorbell, which I think is extremely important from the Neighbourhood Watch point of view, is that you can set it to alert relatives of somebody who's vulnerable. And from the community point of view, that could be somebody that's trusted in the community, which then gives an alert to them that there's a problem. Or it could be a relative who lives anywhere in the world who could be alerted. And that gives an enormous sense of security to a person who's got that Ring doorbell. So it's not just about the fact that it's an extremely useful video device and it saves the evidence. It also gives that feeling of protection, which is wonderful for a vulnerable person's well-being.
Absolutely. That's something I don't think people take into account. You're placing it where it would never normally be placed, and that can be spotted.
Oh, very easily.
But staying with you, Robin, so what can you tell us a little bit more about Neighbourhood Watch? What do groups do, and how can being part of one in your area make your community safer?
Okay, well, Neighbourhood Watch has been around a fair while, and it tends to blossom when crime levels go up and then become a little bit more dormant when people think everything's safe now, and they tend to drop away. What we do, we've got two main aspects to our work. One is preventing crime, which has always been part of our role. The second one is about community well-being, because we've realised that there's an enormous problem with general well-being amongst people who live in communities now. We've become more isolated until, strangely enough, we had a pandemic which brought everybody together. And in many communities, we're now beginning to see what we would love to have in every community, this sense of well-being, brought about by people working together and cooperating. So I guess Neighbourhood Watch is about creating safe, strong, active communities and becoming involved with your community as a part of it. It's a kind of ideal and natural way of getting to know people. So that if you are elderly, or even if you're not, maybe you work away from home a lot, even young people are very isolated these days.
Yeah, or if you live on your own.
Exactly. And there are so many people who live in a little bubble all by themselves and nobody takes any notice of them. Well, one of the things that we try to encourage is this: we all belong to this community. It's our community. Let's talk to each other. And certainly in the surveys that we do, you get quite surprised, because if you ask people things like, what's the name of your next door neighbour? They know that. What's the name of the person 2 doors away? Starts to get a little bit less.
Yeah.
And then by the time you get to the end of the street, nobody knows anybody. So it's that we want to overcome. Obviously, Neighbourhood Watch has a role in crime prevention and always has had. And so, for instance, we're talking about burglary today.
Yeah.
So the fact that we've got a scheme running means that everybody's watching out for everybody else. So that means we've got more surveillance available if we want it. It also offers the chance for people to feel safer because they know other people are looking after them and looking out for them. So if you're in a Neighbourhood Watch area, you feel better. And so that's good for your well-being.
Yeah.
From a criminal's point of view, if they walk into an area where they see a Neighbourhood Watch sign, we know from the statistics that we've got, it does have an impact. They'd rather go somewhere there where it's easier to commit a crime. They don't want to know that there are people on the lookout for each other. So they will avoid those areas. And it's clearly shown by statistics it will reduce all kinds of crime, but particularly burglary, because that's one of the things that people want to sneak about doing. They want to do it.
People are really concerned about being burgled, and you know, if you're vulnerable at all, if you're elderly, if your mobility isn't brilliant, if you've got health, long-term health problems, you can feel very afraid of being burgled. It's a real concern that comes up on our community surveys.
That's true. And of course, there's another side to that, in that more people work outside their home. Yeah. And so a lot of the burglaries, people have this perception that burglary happens at night and probably think somebody's wearing a striped t-shirt and carrying a swag bag over their shoulder. It doesn't happen like that. Most burglaries happen during the day. And they will happen because people have noticed that people have got a routine. And when people have a routine, it's very easy to work out when it's safer to burgle somewhere than it's not. You know, a lot of elderly people will wait until 9:30 before they catch the bus, because that's when your pass kicks in and you can have free transport. Well, if you're on the lookout, you'll see these people go on certain days of the week to the bus stop and wait for the bus. You can wait for them to go, and then you've got free pass into their house. So there are lots of things about this that, if you're in Neighbourhood Watch, and one of the things that we find so important is that if people club together somewhere in the community, just to keep an eye on things.
Yeah. And can local coordinators in the different areas around the district, can they offer advice on, you know, if you just make a simple change, this could increase your security?
Absolutely, yes. We do have trained coordinators who've been trained by the police to do victim support visits. And what we find with those is, if somebody's been burgled, they're deeply in shock. Yes. If they've reported it to the police, they'll get good advice from the police at the time, but they're still in shock and they can't.
Absolutely. So they might not take it all in. They might not take it all in at that point.
When quite difficult for them to talk to somebody in the uniform who looks official when they're already upset. And so we offer the chance to talk to a member of their community who's been trained, knows what to ask, not as experienced as somebody from the Bobby Scheme, obviously, because we're all volunteers, but we will sit and talk to people, and two things happen. First of all, they start to look at those things that, had they known about it, they would have done something about it, which allowed the burglar to come in. And the second thing that happens is they'll talk more freely. And as they talk more freely, they'll start to notice more details about the events surrounding that burglary. And so very often we will walk away and think, oh, I'll just make the crime centre know about that at headquarters, just so they've got that to add to the crime report. So, and it's obviously something that is, if it's done by a coordinator who lives within that scheme, then you have the advantage that that person will be there the long term. And so the victim of burglary, who may well go on to a downward slope mentally as a result of all the events, there's somebody there to look after them, somebody to look over their shoulder. And because we work in partnership with people like Perri and Bobby Scheme and a whole range of other services, we can say, we're worried about this person. It might be worth doing a little welfare check, or perhaps getting Bobby Scheme in to give them some more advice about what they can do. So we can act as that long-term support, which the agencies haven't got the staffing or the budgets to do.
Not at this point. And if somebody wants to join Neighbourhood Watch or set up their own scheme, how can they contact you?
Very easy. If they go to ourwatch.org.uk, there's a yellow button on the front of that site, which if they press, they can then go through the routine to join Neighbourhood Watch, and they can then become a registered member. They might not have a scheme in their area, in which case they can either apply to start a scheme and we'll help them through that process, or they might be lucky and find there is a scheme in their area already, and there's another button that says join a scheme, and then they can become a member of that scheme. The whole thing's free, nationally organised, and all our coordinators, because we put them in a position of trust, are checked by the police to make sure that
that's reassuring, I think, for anybody who's looking for that support. Right, Perri, can I come to you?
Yes, sorry, I was just going to say, if I can add on to what Robin was saying there, if agencies are listening and various other individuals, we actually give a lot of talks to groups like the French Age UK friendship groups, or the U3As, or Deafblind UK. There's loads of women's institutes that we give talks to regularly, at least, well, before the pandemic, maybe twice a month. And more recently, we've been doing some online, and we've just been giving talks on little tips on how to stay safe in the home or out of the home. So if anyone wants to, is interested in anything like that, and they're not part of a group, they can always get in touch with us, and we can see where they might be able to join up with a group to listen to something interesting like that.
Absolutely. I mean, and if you've got like an open event that you need advertising, where people can log in on a Teams or Zoom meeting and listen to any of these talks, we'd be happy to advertise those through our comms.
Thank you.
So, Perri, in your experience, are victims of burglary more likely to be targeted again?
Well, I'm not police, so I can't really answer from that perspective. But from the Bobby Scheme perspective, our repeat victimisation rate. In fact, I did some figures only yesterday for the last year, and it was 0. So we don't have any repeat visits to people that have been burgled. That was the year before, but actually this last year we had, out of 999 elderly people that we supported, we had one person that we returned to, and that was something that even through our visit we wouldn't have been able to have prevented, although what we put in place did alert the person to the crime actually taking place. And that was the catalytic converter, somebody trying to steal a car catalytic converter. So we put in a driveway alarm. So although we didn't stop, the person still managed to steal the catalytic converter, it did alert the person, the owner of the vehicle, to the crime whilst it was happening. So that is the only incident we had this last year.
So it sounds then that the results of having intervention from the Bobby scheme after a crime, the residents are a lot safer and
Yes.
a lot more aware of how to keep themselves safe, which is excellent news.
Yes.
If you think about it, there is, I mean, frankly, yes, people are burgled again repeatedly. And if you look at the statistics, 25% of the people that are burgled will be burgled in the first week after that burglary.
Really?
And it goes, and it's about
Okay.
51% will be burgled within the first month after a burglary. And there are obvious reasons for that. And the way, where this follows on from what Perri was saying, is that if people don't make a difference to what they were doing before, then the burglary is just as likely to happen again.
Yeah.
And good advice, help with buying the right products, which Perri's organisation does very well.
Yeah.
And also just thinking to yourself, why did this happen? And going through it, we've got checklists that will help people to go through those stages of analysis and then put something in the way. They're opportunists, remember. So what burglars will do is they'll look for the opportunity, carry out the crime, and then after that crime, they'll think of a couple of things. One is obvious. If I've stolen all the things in their house that they can buy again, they will immediately go out and buy them. And then, you know, the next time you burgle, you're going to get brand new things. So it makes it a very attractive opportunity. And if nothing's changed, you know your way around, you can go in more easily the second time and the third time. And the other thing is, burglars don't work in isolation. They work with their friends, or they will have friends, and they'll share the information about vulnerable areas. And so you will not just get the same burglar, but you'll get other burglars thinking, oh, this is where I shall go next. So yes, they do get burgled again, unless they make a change to what was there in the first place.
Yeah.
And that's where this advice is so important.
Yeah, that's where the Neighbourhood Watch and Bobby Scheme are really key. And it's clear that they provided an excellent service to Fenland residents. So a big thank you to both organisations, and long may that continue.
And I think, Rosie, can I just say as well,
Yeah.
with Fenland residents, a lot of people live very remotely, and you know, we do become like a trusted friend to a lot of these residents. And it might be that, you know, when we're on our way to see one person and we know that there's somebody that we visited not so long ago up the road that's isolated, we might just tap on the door and say, hi, okay, do you need anything? As Robin was saying, just being a bit neighbourly, and that's how sometimes we can maybe link in with other organisations that might be able to help them in other areas if they might need some extra support here and there.
Yeah. And I think, you know, you've brought up, you know, being a good neighbour as well. That's so important. If we could bring a little bit more of that back, you know, just remove that hesitancy from getting involved. People often a little bit hesitant about not wanting to take on everyone's problems, but you know, just a few little kind acts in your own close or street, I think, could go a long way. Okay, I believe that just about wraps up our event for today. Perri and Robin, thank you so much for your valuable advice and telling us about the organisations you work for. Thank you to everyone watching at home. Yet again, it's great to see you all. If you'd like to see more of what we do here at the Fenland Community Safety Partnership, then you can follow us on Twitter and at CSP on YouTube. And please subscribe to our YouTube events and you'll get alerts as new videos are uploaded. Until next time, take care and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.